I've met so many educators who love our movie Freedom Riders, but I need to share with you another side of this that has burdened me. Even if you have the best of intentions, you can still do great harm and you can still create distance between yourself and the students that you want to reach. I've met so many educators who love our movie Freedom Riders and who are inspired by my high school English teacher, Erin Gruwell. I think they're inspired because when they see her, they catch a glimpse of their own possibilities. They catch a glimpse of their own power to alter the trajectory of their students' lives. When they see my teacher, they're reminded of their power to meet kids where they are and help them become more and greater than their circumstances. They see my teacher and they see themselves, this young, naive, energetic teacher with all of this cheerleader alacrity who entered into this inner city environment, and she inspired her students to turn their lives around, to take responsibility for their own success and go on and do great things and go to college and build careers and all of that stuff. And I love that our movie has inspired so many people. I love that so many teachers have been encouraged to stay in the profession because of my high school English teacher and the rippling impact that she's had. But I need to share with you another side of this that has burdened me, that has sometimes saddened me, and at times it's frustrated me. An observation: many educators of every ethnicity want to be inspired but don't want to be challenged, want to be reminded of their power but don't want to be told that some of the things they're doing need to change. Many of them want to be told that they're enough but don't want to hear that maybe the lens through which they see the world and some of their students is inadequate or deficient and is self-sabotaging. Even if you have the best of intentions, you can still do great harm and you can still create distance between yourself and the students that you want to reach. And so I wanted to make this video to not only tell you I'm grateful for the work that you do, but to also challenge many of you to see that the lens through which you see the world and your students in many ways creates distance between you and your students and their families. She began to study our language and our heroes and our rituals. She began to study our neighborhoods. She began to drive through our neighborhoods to kind of understand where we lived and the environment we walked through every day. She began to listen to our music. She humbled herself in order to understand life through our eyes as much as she could, as much as possible. How much are you willing to humble yourself in order to become a student of your students? How much are you willing to admit that the lens through which you see the world is not properly informed or not informed enough about the very real context of your students? Because if you're going to reach them, you're going to have to humble yourself. But humility is not enough. Awareness that their normal is different from yours is not enough. The most highly effective communicators and educators cross-culturally go through a process in order to become maximally effective and perceived by the people they serve as effective and appropriate. There's a process you go through, and when I look back at the life and the work of Miss Gruwell, she went through many of these stages. And so I've come up with this acronym, this framework, based on my own work, based on my experiences as a freedom rider, based on my own research, and based on my last 25 years of interacting and working with students myself and very diverse groups. And I just want to share it with you. The B stands for the breaking. Every great leader, teacher, communicator has to go through a breaking, a disequilibrating experience that disturbs your equilibrium. And that breaking gives you the realization that your cultural universe is not culturally universal. One of the great things about Miss Gruwell is that she entered into our world with a desire to help, with a heart to serve, with a sense of calling to make a difference in our lives, like many of you. But there was this disequilibrating experience that she had, this eye-opening experience, this epiphany that she had, that her normal was not our normal, that her cultural universe was not culturally universal, that the way she grew up was very different from the way many of us grew up. Use that as the foundation for you to move to the next stage, which is incarnational humility, humbling yourself like Jesus humbled himself, who thought it not robbery to consider himself equal with God, but he humbled himself, put on human flesh, even to the point of death, put himself on a cross, allowed himself to be crucified for the sake of humanity. Incarnational humility. Enter into the world of the people you want to reach and humble yourself as a servant leader. Miss Gruwell, she humbled herself and became a student of her students. She didn't just say, I don't care that your normal is different from mine. You've got to learn my way. She didn't say that you have to adjust your culture in order to be more like me. No, she humbled herself and became a student of her students. And then the D stands for desire. You have to have a desire to learn about them. It's not enough to have an awareness. It's not enough to be humble and be around them. No, you have to have a desire to learn about them. And then the G stands for growth. This is where the learning takes place. You need to actually go through the process of learning. You need to go through the process of really becoming a student of your students, of really seeking to understand life through their eyes, study language and heroes and symbols and rituals, study their particularities, study their thought process, study their values, study their media influences, study. Become a cultural anthropologist, a participant observer, watching their shows, looking at what they look at online, learning about what they like and don't like on TikTok, on Instagram, on social media, learning about streaming and Twitch and all this other stuff, becoming a student of your students in order to understand life through their eyes. And not only that, to become aware of your own cultural conditioning. The best way to understand yourself is through interacting with cultural others. But the most effective factor I found in developing cultural self-awareness is not reading books, but it's in finding a cross-cultural mentor to talk to share your perceptions with, to share your experiences with, and to get feedback from them about your perceptions, about your experiences, about your values, about how you're being perceived by the people you want to reach. Do you have a mentor? Do you have a mentor, whether it's a student, another teacher, another administrator, who's from the culture of the students and the families that you want to reach? Do you have a mentor who's from the environment that you're trying to be effective in? Because that, my friend, can help you more than anything else. You can watch the videos, you can read the books, you can go to the conferences, you can do all this other stuff. You can join small groups, that can be effective, but you need a mentor, someone that you can talk to. We became Miss G's mentors. I, in many ways, became one of Miss G's mentors. I was able to explain to her what was going on in our culture. She would ask me questions and I would share with her why someone was behaving the way they were behaving. She would talk about some of the challenges she was dealing with some of my classmates and ask me my opinion on those things, and I would share with her my perspective. I became Miss G's mentor in many ways, and of course she mentored me. But there was this mentorship that we had with each other. They say poverty is not only the lack of access to money, but it's the lack of access to the vocabulary and the culture of the class that's above you. And in many ways, Miss G mentored me, teaching me the vocabulary, teaching me the language of those who were academically successful. And in the same way, in some ways, and it wasn't just me, there were several others, we were able to mentor her into understanding us. And she was able to take that understanding of us and of herself, and she was authentically herself. We call these things Erinisms. Like, she would say things like, my bad, miss, but we laughed because that was her, but she was doing her best to understand us. And then from the G, you move to the E, the engagement. This is where you take your understanding, you take your growth, you take your perspective that you've learned from your immersion in the lives of your students, and you engage them by building a bridge between your curriculum and their contexts. Content without any regard for context is counterproductive. Erin Gruwell took what she learned from us, and then she used those things to build a bridge between her curriculum, her content, and our context. She built bridges between her content and our context, between her curriculum and our culture. She built a bridge back and forth, and that became her normal. And when you do that, you develop what scholars now know as intercultural competence. It's the perception of cultural others that you have the motivation, understanding, and skills to be effective and appropriate when you're interacting with them in that context. Intercultural competence is effectiveness, the ability to achieve your objectives, and appropriateness, the ability to achieve those objectives in a way that does not disrespect or violate the cultural norms of the people that you're serving. That's intercultural competence. And you need motivation, understanding, skills. Breaking, realization, incarnational humility, desire, growth, and engagement leads to intercultural competence. Oh, that's good. Go through the bridge framework, and I promise you, you'll see more results. I can't tell you how many educators have reached out to me to thank me for sharing this perspective with them and how it has helped them be much more effective and appropriate with the students that they serve. I always want to remind you that even on your worst day, you can be your student's best hope. For what it's worth, I pray that adds value to your life. I'm your friend, Dr. Manny Scott. Thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, share, and stay engaged because I have so much more coming for you. All right. Thanks for watching. God bless you.